Hello, hello. Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast. And this is an Indie Talk week. And that means I have my good friend and co-founder with me, Nicholas Buggs. I've also got two incredible esteemed guests with me, the one and only Alex Schmider and the up and coming superstar, as I was told, Sav Rodgers. Gentlemen, say hello.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me back.
Yay. That's what we do. It was a great time the first time. Sav, it's good to have you.
It's nice to be here, but the "as I was told" makes me think that's not a thought that you think, and you were told to say that.
You know, Sav,
I was about to say, well, listen, I know, right? But I was about to say, I was like, what do you mean up and coming? He is here, bro. Look, listen, if he's made it to the Make It podcast, he has arrived.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. He's not coming. He's here. So let's appreciate it for what it is. You sit corrected, bro. You're not standing.
Yeah.
Are you?
Well, wouldn't that be wild?
It would be, actually.
Like for the audience, like because they don't really know. I'm not sure everybody knows, right? Like,
yeah.
I just like stand to the side and be camera level.
No, it'd be really cool as if like you were like, in order to be camera level, I cut a hole in the floor. You know, that's smart.
You just see him disappear down.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I'm full of magic. I am full of magic. Do not doubt me. But no, this is great. And I don't know if producer Papa Bear can pull the actual episode number, the date that you were on the first time, Alex. But I can just tell you our response from that was really, really powerful. Yep. And we were a smaller podcast then, and it was still sort of an overwhelming response and an answer to a lot of people's questions that they had about you and about just that entire, your entire world. And I was really and remain incredibly proud of that interview. So I just want to thank you for coming on the first time. It was really dope.
Thank you. That means a lot. And it's still one of my favorite interviews today. I mean, you guys are awesome and so glad to be back. And with this guy who I love immensely, and Sav, who, as you said, Nick, he's made it. He's here. I'm so just happy to be with you all.
That is a wonderful segue to just let the audience know who you are. And I'll start with you, Alex, and go to you, Sav, just to name title, let people know your background. And by the way, that episode was in the thick, apparently, of COVID. Time flies when you're in COVID.
That
right. Was July 27th of 2021, believe it or not. My gosh.
Wow.
I had no idea it was that long ago. But anyway, you guys can find it. It's back in 2021. We were all not sure if we were going to be living, and we were just going for it. And that's partially maybe what made it great.
I knew I was going to make it. It's the name of the podcast. What are you talking about?
You've got all this regress. You've got all this regress trauma, Nick. And I don't know,
bro. No, I don't know what you're gonna. Look at this.
You're not allowed. You're not allowed to be scared. And I'm saying on this platform, you are allowed to be scared.
No,
you
bro.
You can be afraid with me.
No, you bring COVID at me. I'm gonna make it. Come on now.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Okay.
Let's go.
Fair
Let's
enough.
go. All right.
I'm going to drink to that.
Very good.
Alex, please let the people know who you are, what we might know you for, and what you're working on now.
That's right.
Hello again. After all these years, I'm Alex Schmider. I am now the Senior Director of Entertainment and Transgender Inclusion at GLAAD. And you might know me from some of my documentary films that I've produced. And one of them that I'm so proud to talk about today is Chasing Amy, with the director who's here today too. So thrilled to be back with you both. It's the best time always.
Awesome. It means the world to me. And Nick, coming from you, Sav, give us the 411.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to be here. And anything that Alex recommends, I take very seriously. This guy has my heart. I'm a filmmaker. You might know me from my TED Talk, the rom-com that saved my life, which is featured prominently in the documentary that I think we're talking about today, which is called Chasing Amy. And I would say that's the thing I guess I'm most known for at this point. And hopefully there'll be a lot more to come. This is the first one.
Well, I loved your TED Talk. And I thought it was so genuine. And I've always thought about doing a TED Talk. I had an opportunity to do one in 2021, might have been 2020. It was it was before COVID, back when they were doing TEDx, and it was going to be in Nashville, and I was going to talk about independent filmmaking and all that stuff. And it's weird. I've started in music. I've been on stages, and I've done plays, and obviously I've made a few films with my partner here, Nick, and made a handful of short films and things like that. But there's something uniquely different about giving a speech on a TED Talk. It's almost like losing a game of chess to a 12-year-old on national television. That's the kind of nerves you get. You get nervous in that way. Like, I cannot lose to this person here, right? Like, so there's an intellectual part of it that the people in the audience are expecting you to be smart and articulate and talk about something they haven't thought of yet or haven't thought of before, a new concept, a new idea. And I thought you did that really, really well. I was quite happy with it.
We got to talk about that though. So there must have been some additional skill in there. Okay. And I'm going to tell you why. So folks got to watch the TED Talk, but you've got what, 5 minutes and 30 seconds? I think that's when the clock starts. 'Cause I saw the clock. Right.
Oh yeah.
And I know you're looking at the clock. It's like just around that time, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So how I gave the TED Talk was through this program called the TED Residency, which unfortunately is defunct now. But basically the whole premise of the program was that it was like a 3-month idea incubator where you could do 3 months of research at TED HQ, and then you finish off the residency by giving a TED Talk.
Oh,
and
cool.
They were supposed to be limited to 6 minutes, but I went last that day. So I got to go for 8 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It was fine.
8 minutes.
Wait. Because I'm thinking about, I'm like, I know, because I was looking at the
6
clock.
minutes.
Yeah, because so there was 6 minutes, right? So, but the thing is that you're preparing for, let's say, 6 minutes. But your talk, people were laughing. So you had to give space for the laughing. So at the same time, you're like, yo, I appreciate y'all, right? I appreciate the engagement, but shut up. I gotta get my stuff.
Well, again, I didn't have that problem. Now, a normal TED Talk, you can talk from anywhere from like 15 to 20 minutes sometimes. Yeah. Depends on how important you are, I guess, that they just like let you do whatever. Like one of the best TED Talks of all time is Monica Lewinsky's. I mean, that's at least 22 minutes, I think. Yeah. It's so, but if it's a good TED Talk, then you'll be engaged for however long the speaker's up there.
Right.
And so in retrospect, 6 minutes was wild, but I didn't know anything. So I was like, great, I get 6 minutes to talk about chasing Amy on this platform. And I was stoked. But they made me go last that day. I was so nervous. I was like, wait, could I just like get it over with and do it first?
Yeah.
I had a little bit of a stammer when I was a kid, whenever I would talk in public. And so, I was, this was a big thing for me to like kind of get over, not only talking in public, but also talking about some of like the most difficult moments of my life in public, at things that I hadn't told some of my closest friends, let alone, the entire world. And so the thing that made me feel confident though was Katrina Konan and Reel, who was the program manager that for that period of time. And I was like begging her, I was like, could I go first? Could we just like get it over with? And she was like, Sav, who would go after you? And
I like it.
And I was like,
interesting.
Oh, right, maybe this is like something special. I don't know. I was just really focused on getting the movie made and, being present in the experience of it, that I like to know that somebody who had helped a lot of people give TED Talks, say, no, you are going last and you were going last for a purpose. Just made me really feel like I could do it, and made it so much easier the day of like, okay, I'm supposed to be here. Don't get me wrong, I was flipping the out like right before I went on stage.
I'm with you though. I like going last for that reason.
Yeah. And then they were like, Sav Rodgers, come to the stage. And I was like, okay, it's game time. And
let's go.
Yeah, that was that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But I think you handled it so great with the timing that you had, and then the people laughing. I mean, it was just crazy. It's like, you're kind of waiting. It's like, you want to give them their space, but at the same time, you got stuff to say. So I think it was very well done. Very well done.
My background. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say my background in middle school theater let me know to hold for applause. Yes.
Nice. Well done. Well played.
Which is smart, right? You had to give that timing. I just watched the roast of Tom Brady. And if you watch that, it's way too long, but if you watch that, the first thing you understand about a comedian is they allow that applause. And when they don't get it, it actually throws them off. They're like, okay. And they actually ask you to applause for this.
You know what,
I baked in that applause. I baked in that applause in my act and you didn't give it to me.
You know what though? I love when there isn't applause when it's expected, because it's almost like the audience holding the comedians accountable. It's like, nah, you didn't deliver. You got to earn it. We're not just going to give it to you. I prefer that, especially also with music. Like when you're in a music venue, get hyped, get excited. But because the performance, the artist is bringing it, let's give our best and also give our best back. So anyway,
it's a great point. There's a lot of human psychology in that, right? If you're at the Apollo and there's a kid performer, that kid's going to get claps no matter what. We just do that for the child's benefit, but you can definitely tell the difference between sincere clapping, sincere laughing, sincere applause versus one that's given, sort of almost as a sympathy
participation award.
Yeah, you can just tell the difference. Like Seinfeld, who I bring up constantly anyway, but basically echoes that sentiment, Alex, which is like there's nothing more honest than the audience. You can say what you want to say. You can bring up whatever stats you want to bring up. You can bring up how many sold out crowds at MSG, whatever it is you think you need to bring up. All I know is that audience didn't laugh when you told a joke. And that's the true answer. That's the real thing. And that's why comedy, I think, is so powerful. And I think TED Talks are so powerful. And anything that's sort of happening live, that craving we have sort of for the real, is all about chemistry between the person on stage communicating something, transference of energy, right? Where you're hoping that the audience sort of responds to you in this mimetic sort of way. So, I totally agree with that.
You're hitting on something though that I'm really excited to talk about, which is both Sav and I mean, maybe he'll tell you our origin story. He does it better than I do, but we are both filmmakers and storytellers that are really audience driven. We deeply care about how people are going to receive the stories that we're telling. And that's not everyone's MO. There are some people that just want to tell their jokes regardless of the laughter, regardless of how the audience is experiencing. But I think because of both where Sav and I come from and how we've come up, we're really interested in what audiences think and feel when they're engaging with the stuff that we make. So I don't know. I just love this conversation. And again, Chris, I know you and I have a psychology background, so we can get deep into this. But yeah, I think it's so important to talk about.
Yeah, but let's talk about that. We want to know about that origin
my background,
story.
I just have to give it up. My background comes from producer Papa Bear.
And born into it.
Yeah, and being born into growing up with someone in your house that has a major in that and hypnotizes you and tells you why you're getting the spanking and why you misbehaved. Oh, I did. That's why I did it. Oh, I didn't know that. I thought I just wanted to eat all the cookies. No, you really didn't.
Explain it to you.
This is exactly why you did that. But I do think there's a contingency of people listening that think that we're stuttering, that think that we're making a mistake. We're saying chasing Amy. Or they think the record has skipped. And I just want to be clear, because Chasing Amy has a cult following the way that The Big Lebowski does, or the way The Princess Bride does, or, any of these movies you can think of where it's maybe it wasn't considered a blockbuster at the time, but has built up a following over time. I remember I was working at Blockbuster Video right around the time it came out, and it was just a movie that the insider film people were whispering about and sharing with one another, and that they really, really loved. It wasn't the thing that the 40-year-old housewife with a bunch of kids was coming to rent, to be honest. Nothing against 40-year-old housewives with a bunch of kids. I love those people. I'm saying that they weren't renting Chasing Amy. It was the filmmaking people. And it was a whole Kevin Smith thing. At the time, he just sort of owned the independent film zeitgeist. Yeah. The way that the, what's the brothers, Nick, that basically have that space now?
You're talking
Mark,
about the Cohen?
Duplass.
Duplass.
The
Duplass.
Duplass brothers.
There you go.
They were like the Duplass brothers of that time in a way, where we were all aspiring. Like, if we could just be and do what Kevin Smith is doing,
that and
then the
young
world will
people.
be great.
That was the other thing.
Yeah.
Young people. That was the thing. You got to see these young people on screen doing young people things,
Yes.
especially in young people real things, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't fantastical, you know. It was like, wow, maybe I could see myself in those people. And I think that's the allure that it had and why it did build a following.
Yeah, especially like coming after Clerks and like just understanding that world and these worlds that Kevin Smith built. But anyway, just want to get the audience caught up, because some of the people in the audience are young enough to not even know what Chasing Amy is.
Wait. Right before you do that, okay. I got a thought that I want to share. Okay.
Please,
and this is back to
I pause for Nick thoughts.
Well, I appreciate you. Right? Like deep thoughts with Jack Handy. So I just wanted to bring it back to Chris earlier when he was, introducing Sav and saying, Sav, hey, give us the details, right? He said, give us the information, but he didn't say, give us the details. He didn't say, give us the information.
Some old shit. You're right. That was some old shit. I said some old shit, and now you're going to call me out on it. That's fine.
I'm not going to call you out. I need to introduce our young guests. Our young audience. My man said, hey, Sav, give us the 411.
Yes,
and nobody knows what that is anymore. These kids don't know about the 411.
There's no phones anymore. You don't dial 411 for the information. It's true. As soon as that fell out of my mouth, I said, "What did you just say, Chris?"
Yeah, it's like back in the day when you would call that number to find out what the time was. At the tone, the time will be. You sync up your watch to that joint. Yeah. So I just wanted to, before we get into the chasing Amy, I just want to let people know. All right, 411 means information, because that's what you would dial to get it.
That's exactly right. It's as if I said, when does the movie come out on tape?
Well, hey, listen, my wife still says, hey, are you going to videotape that? I'm like,
and there's no videotape. There hasn't been videotape in a minute.
In a hot minute. So anyway, just had to put that out there before Sav drops the 411 on Chasing Amy.
I'm happy to be the movie phone reference here. This is kind of like calling movie phone and being like, hey, what is this movie and when can I go see it?
There you go.
Another dated reference. Yes.
Yes. Let's drop them all day.
Sav, break down Chasing Amy for us. And
it is.
And then connect that to Chasing Amy.
Right.
Your documentary.
Yep.
Absolutely. So Chasing Amy is a film directed by Kevin Smith from 1997. That was a cult classic, but also was very commercially successful for its time. It made $12 million at the box office in 1997, which by 2021 figures was roughly the equivalent to like $55 million when adjusted for inflation. So this was a popular film when it came out, but it's pre like big internet discourse, which it certainly would have had if it had been released at a time where like Twitter existed, for example. So the premise of the movie is that a straight man, played by Ben Affleck, falls in love with a lesbian, played by Joey Lauren Adams, and it's about their ensuing friendship and romantic relationship. So the tagline of the movie from Miramax was, "It's not who you love, but how." And so it's this, this story that's really about what happens when you find a person who you feel these like, feels complete you, and you really feel seen by them. And then it's also about how that can devolve very quickly due to insecurity. And so Cindy Stivers in our documentary says it's about Kevin working out his masculinity issues on screen. The real inspiration is that it was about Kevin and Joey's real relationship, and it's through this like LGBTQ lens, because Kevin knew some LGBTQ people. And so where Chasing Amy comes in, and this is what I get into in the TED Talk, is that I saw Chasing Amy at age 12 as a closeted queer trans kid in Kansas, and it quite literally saved my life. It was this life raft when I needed it, because I was having a really hard time in school. I was really lonely. And I found this movie that, one, provided me, access to thinking deeper about films. My media diet pretty much consisted of like Star Wars and Full House at that point. And so this was one of the first films that really like, spoke to me, as an artist or whatever, as like a sensitive kid. Two, it depicted LGBTQ people in a way that I felt was like really full and interesting. specifically looking at the characters of Alyssa and Hooper in the film. And I was just really moved by the whole thing. And so it content warning here, but it kept me from killing myself, quite literally. And so I developed this really intense relationship with the movie where I'm watching it, at least once a day, every day for 30 days, like I said in the TED Talk. And so, fast forward a decade and some change later, and, I'm getting out of film school and I'm like, I want to tell a story that only I could tell. And I, thought that there was a really interesting dissonance between Chasing Amy and how much I loved it and how much it saved my life as a queer person, and the tension that existed with a lot of LGBTQ people who did not like the movie because they thought it was either lesbophobic, biphobic, homophobic, whatever you want to call it. And its depiction of a lesbian who, quote unquote, turns to be with a man.
Right.
And I thought that it was a really interesting discourse, because there are people who are bisexual and pansexual that are like me, that were this is the first time I saw myself. And there were other people that were this set me back in the closet 10 years, 20 years.
Wow.
And,
Gotcha.
it was a cultural Rorschach test of kind of no matter who you are, you kind of have this different relationship to Chasing Amy. And I rarely met anybody who was indifferent about it if they had seen the movie. Almost everybody had a very strong reaction to it, which I think is a litmus test for being a great film. Is can you evoke a really strong reaction?
Agreed.
One way or another? And so I was thinking about what's a story that only I could tell. I decided I wanted to make a documentary about Chasing Amy. And then, as Alex can attest to, it evolves over time, where it's not this anthropological thing where I'm seeking out conversations with community anymore. It becomes my real personal story about coming of age against the backdrop of Chasing Amy. So Chasing Amy is a documentary ultimately that is a coming of age story about what happens when you know that you exist, the love that we have for cinema, and what happens when we find ourselves in the world. And Chasing Amy was a huge catalyst to do that. And for anybody listening who hasn't seen the movie, you might be like, wow, that's a lot of things for a movie to be. And you're right. It contains a lot, but we really carefully threaded the story together, meticulously, thanks to the collaboration of, me and Alex and all of the other people who worked on this movie for a 5-year period. And that's a long time to spend in a documentary about yourself, especially when you did not elect to necessarily be in it.
Yeah, and that's interesting though, because I know that, because what we talk about on the podcast is there's so many things, right? It's the films, it's the people, it's the human nature that's in it, but it's also this growth through the filmmaking process that we like to talk about as well. And it's really interesting when you mention, because I don't think people think about how long it takes to make a film, right? It's just it's there, right? It's it was born one day, but you're no, this is a 5-year process, and it's a 5-year process that saw the evolution of a film into what it is today, which it wasn't at the beginning. So could you just talk about this a little bit about well, where did Alex come in, right? And was he part of that shift? Was it look, stop making this about this film, because the film is interesting, but maybe it was it's not as interesting as you, right? So I'm just curious, how that happened. When did that connection get made, and how was he an influence into your film?
Totally. Well, I met Alex just on a general with GLAAD. I was wanting to meet with GLAAD for 2 reasons. One, we're starting a nonprofit called the Transgender Film Center, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that connects trans-made films with audiences around the world. And the only people who I had heard of doing remotely similar work to support trans filmmakers were the people at GLAAD. Okay. But I didn't know anybody, because you kind of have to know people to get to Alex, I would say. You kind of have to be in community.
You know what? I just to correct the record a little bit. It's only because GLAAD is a surprisingly smaller organization than the weight with which we throw around.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Anyway, keep going.
That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you can't Google hey, if you're trans and you have a question about film stuff and you're nervous about maybe being on camera in a documentary, who do you go to? like Alex's name does not pop up when you search for something like that.
Would I pop up for ChatGPT though?
You're right. You're gonna have to test that out. You know, because you know, and the thing is that I was gonna say that, you know, maybe it's because, you know, I mean, from my perspective, you know, Alex is one of those that we look up to, right? So it's you got to be able to find people that reach up to that level, you know, in order to get to him. So I totally get that. And, you know, whatever, you know, you had to do to at least grab onto the coattails of Alex.
Yeah. Oh my God, please interrupt Nick immediately.
I'm gonna humble Alex really quick.
Reach for his cape.
That's it. That's all I need to do.
I'm going to humble Alex really quick, because who I was interested in meeting with was his boss at the time, Nick Adams, Nick Adams like was in Disclosure. He'd been interviewed by Oprah at that point, and he's the person who I had heard of like, okay, you know, if you have a question about trans stuff in Hollywood, you go to him. And then Alex was added to the meeting. I was like, who the f- is this guy? And I was like, who is this guy? And then throughout the call, though, you know, like we were all deeply aligned, because like, the other reason I wanted to meet with GLAAD was that I wanted to talk about Chasing Amy, because at that point I knew I was going to be in it. We had been shooting stuff with me. I wasn't sure how much I was going to be in it yet, but I was like, hey, I feel kind of exposed. I don't really know who to talk to about this. You know, do you have like anything to talk about, like being trans in public? And they were like, yes, we do. And so over the course of the conversation, though, I found that Alex, you know, was a very like congenial, interesting guy. And like, I had no idea, like, you know, that he had produced Disclosure or Changing the Game or anything like that. But I had seen Disclosure and I had heard of Changing the Game from the festival circuit. And I was like, oh, great, this guy produces movies too. But I just really liked him as a person.
Yep.
And I had pitched like another idea for a movie. They were like, what else do you have working on? And I pitched this idea for like a fantastical trans boy coming of age story. And Alex was like, I never do this, but like, and I know we just met, but anything that you're making, I would love for you to like consider me for a producing thing. And I was like, okay, great.
It was like, hey, I just met you and this is crazy, but here's my number, so call me maybe.
Call me
you
maybe.
Know what I mean? It was definitely a call me maybe moment. And again, as Sav said, I never do that because, you know, I'm very discerning and selective about the people that I want to work with, the kind of projects. And immediately upon meeting him, I was like, this guy dreams big and is generous and kind and has a vision for the kinds of like hopeful, uplifting stories that I'm interested in. Because fun fact, both of us saw the movies that saved our lives at 12 years old. So we also have that in our back pockets that we would later find out.
But your path to like the movie that saved my life is way more f***ed up than mine, because yours also set you back in the closet for at least a decade.
Yeah.
Right. Hey.
Which movie was it, Alex?
Yeah.
Boys Don't Cry.
Yeah,
but it's the reason I work at GLAAD. And it's the reason I produce movies, because that was so formative to like delaying my own self-acceptance, that I want to tell stories that make it easier for people to see themselves sooner and not fear what will happen when they become who they are.
That's right.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that. I mean, Alex knows this, but like a lot of people don't know. Like, I've never seen Boys Don't Cry, but there's a very specific reason I haven't seen it, and it's because like there was only one movie I was ever really not allowed to watch as a kid, and even though my mom like didn't necessarily know I was trans, like she had seen that movie and she's like, I never want my child to see this.
Yeah, it's tough.
And like, I've still never seen it. I have no idea if I ever will, but like, good looking out, Mom. Thanks for making sure I didn't see that.
Yeah, right, exactly. Set you back. And here's the thing, and guys, I gotta give you this one. So Alex was dropping all sorts of superlative just now, right, on Sav, and just this essence, this feeling. And as I promised earlier, like, because, you know, everybody else didn't see this part. When we were talking earlier, we were preparing for this. I said that I would go to ChatGPT and I would ask it about Sav. So I'm just going to drop some of these superlatives that ChatGPT has to say about Sav. Wait, there's more.
Is this really from
dude, I'm 100% doing it right now. You're right.
So a new segment, Nick reads from ChatGPT.
You're right. Wait, listen. Innovative, Sav's focus on highly specific and surprising stories about queer people demonstrates an innovative approach to storytelling. Passionate, his dedication to filmmaking and advocating for the LGBTQ representation, as seen through his work with the Transgender Film Center, reflects his passion for the industry and community. Influential, through his TED Talk and subsequent filmmaking journey, Sav has become influential in the realm of LGBTQ storytelling and representation. I'll stop there because I got 4 more to go, but I'm telling you, I am reading right now from ChatGPT.
Okay, I mean,
what did I say? What did I say?
So I'm just time out. Okay,
can we first of all, Sav, can we just give you a clap? Can we just
let's
just like
you can't get more authentic than that, bro.
Yeah, I mean, let's go.
Let's go. Funny. I had no idea you had that. I don't know what you got going on. You got like
we
the
got
Steam
you,
Deck
dude.
ready with.
We got you all day.
That's funny. I hate to like burst anybody's bubble, but like the highly specific. That's from my bio on my website. So
100%.
ChatGPT is just recycling. ChatGPT is recycling the PR that Alex has written about me because he wrote that line before we premiered at Tribeca. So
see,
I was, so
I love it.
Look, if people like the movie and like me, that's awesome. But ChatGPT is just given a compliment that Alex wrote so that people would watch the movie.
It all comes back to ChatGPT.
It plagiarizes and then reproduces. But exactly. Can I show the trailer? Can I show the trailer to this?
Let's do it. Yeah, if you got it, man, let's go.
Of course I got it. Let's.
Of course you got it.
Do you understand why I love this movie so much?
No.
For Sav Rodgers, a queer kid growing up in Kansas, role models came from an unexpected source.
When I was 12, I had a movie where the gay and lesbian characters were good and funny and out. They were able to live as their authentic selves.
Chasing Amy.
Chasing Amy.
Chasing Amy.
The third film from director Kevin Smith.
It's about a guy who falls in love with a lesbian.
But Sav's about to find out. Life's not about finding your heroes.
Welcome to the house that Amy built.
It's about finding yourself.
I'm directing a project about the legacy of Chasing Amy as an LGBTQ film. Do you find the film to be authentic to the LGBTQ community?
I find it authentic to the straight dude who falls for a queer woman community.
No longer being a lesbian by meeting the right man.
That's gonna be controversial.
Ben Affleck's goatee was a bad idea.
Let's go into the movie.
Something that's problematic can still mean a lot in your development.
It was brave to portray somebody fluid.
Seeing that movie helped me figure out, oh, that's me.
That's gay.
This girl loves me.
It's cool to come to a place where a bunch of stuff changed your life. All right, let's go. That's where they have their big fight.
Well, we're purifying it with our butts.
You were so supportive, and I was so alone in the world.
How wonderful that you found something in it.
The movie is amazing, but whatever moved you, there's a dark side too.
I can't erase the past.
You don't just get a pass for that.
I didn't know what I expected. I did not expect all this.
Maybe what's really troubling you is that your fragile fantasy might not be true.
Can we tap? This movie made me be honest with myself. Chasing Amy and chasing Amy. My butt has been where Ben Affleck's butt has been. Basically Ben Affleck. A little shorter.
All right, man. Yeah, that was.
Hey, look. This reminds me of a passion that I had when I was younger that I need to like reinvigorate. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I want you to listen. This is the passion I'm talking about. I'm gonna read this off the screen because I wrote it down. What Sav's about to find out is that life's not about chasing your heroes. It's about chasing yourself. I want to do that, man. I want to do that in trailers, bro.
You do have a good trailer voice.
So good.
You've always had a great Morpheus voice.
Yeah, everybody always said that I had the face for radio. You know what I'm saying? So
that's just not true.
No, you're.
I will say though,
you're a beautiful man.
I appreciate
this is a dream within reach, though, Nick, because the guy who cut our trailer did the VO for it, and like it was like temporary VO, and then all of us looked at each other and we're like, "This is really good." And for context, like he's been a trailer editor for the last 20 years, and so he did some temp VO, and we like tried to get other people, but we just liked his version better. So this is like his first feature in a VO thing. So don't let your dreams be dreams. Just say, "Hey, let me do the temp VO," and sometimes they'll just let you keep it.
That's awesome. I might have to be on it, Chris. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, Nick, you know, if I get a chance to make a trailer for one of the movies, I'm gonna.
Let's go, bro.
You're like top the list.
Yeah, put me in there. Put me in there. I want to do it.
You know what? We got some movies. Like, we could figure it out, Nick. We need VO all the time.
Put me on it, man. I'm on it. I will get the script. I will do it 3,700 times to get it wrong and right and all the things, and I will fail in the process. But it just sounds like so much fun. It's like when I'm with my kids and I'm telling them to get out the car, I'm like, Autobots, roll out.
He has a million voices like this. Buddy. He does.
It's just so much fun.
He's tremendous at it. But I also want to think about sort of what we saw in the trailer, which is all of this sort of original Chasing Amy cast. Just from the filmmaking side of this, I know it took 5 years. I'm curious about building up sort of the financing, making the connections, outlining and storyboarding. Because Nick's right. People see a film and they think it was always a go. It was always greenlit. We watched a documentary called Black Barbie at the Nashville Film Festival last year.
Yep.
And that was a 12-year process to get that made. Right. Shout out to, I think her name's LaGueria Davis. Sold that. Shout out to her. Got to meet her in person. And like, people will say, they will think, oh, you're capitalizing on Barbie, the Greta Gerwig film. No, she's been working on it for 12 years.
12 years.
Like the universe just shined down actually and gave her perfect timing. That was right. Like the world's working for you. It was a 12-year journey to get there. So just for you guys, Sav, Alex, I want to know, how did you get people into this movie, convince them to be in? I know Kevin Smith responded to your TED Talk. Was that the first connection? And then how did you get this thing sort of funded and make it sort of a completed film?
Well, I can speak to that a bit, and then I can also wrap in how Alex got involved in the film after that GLAAD meeting. I mean, like, so basically from the outset, it's my first feature, right?
Yeah.
And so I think when it's your first feature, you're just like, let's just try anything. I have nothing to lose. I have no contacts to lose. I have nothing. I had never lived outside of outside of the state of Kansas as an adult before this movie. Yeah. This movie took me to New York for the TED Talk. It took me to LA for the Outset Fellowship where I did a bunch of the interviews. And so at the beginning, it was just me talking to one of my best friends in the world and one of the DPs on this movie, Bradley Garrison, on a car ride home from a 48-hour film festival in Omaha, where I was like, I think I want to make this Chasing Amy documentary, but I don't know if anybody would watch it. And he's like, just do it. Like, I'm there. Like, I'm there with a camera anytime you need. And so then I started pitching it to more people. And then eventually it became a real thing where one of our EPs, Drew Burbridge, was like, hey, make a deck and let's see if we can raise some money for this. Mm-hmm. And then I got the TED residency, off the basis that I had told a very specific story about Chasing Amy, and it was, quote, the most narrow talk for a pitch for a TED Talk they had ever heard. Wow. And then that was enough, I guess. And so, moving to New York for it, we had nobody attached. I think Guinevere Turner had said yes to doing an interview via email, but then we kind of fallen out of touch over the course of it. And then it wouldn't be until much later that I got her to like officially do it and then do the interview. But it just started by just like cold calling people. I called like John Sloss's law office, who for context was production counsel on Chasing Amy, and Kevin Smith's lawyer. And they were like, who's financing this movie? And I was like, bye. So,
right.
There were a lot of people who were not interested, and then a lot of people who were willing to just like give me their time. So we started with getting Bob Hawk. Bob Hawk's step nephew was the theater manager at TED. And he was like, you won't believe it, I have a connection to the gay godfather of independent cinema. He's the guy who discovered Kevin. Yeah. And so eventually, like after the TED Talk happened, a lot of people that I knew were just like wanting to be supportive, and they're like, hey, I have a connection to Kevin or Joey or whoever. And so it all came from that. I got in touch with Joey in February of 2019 through a mutual friend, Melanie Addington, who's the executive director at the Tallgrass Film Festival. And so there was just like all these little connections where people were like, other people would vouch for me enough for other people to be like, okay, this is weird, but I'll do it. Sure. What do I have to lose? Yeah. And then Kevin saw it the day within an hour of it coming out, within an hour of the TED Talk coming out, Kevin saw it, responded to it on Twitter. And the next day I called his reps at WME and I was like, hi, this is weird, but like your client, Kevin Smith, agreed to be in my documentary. I'll email you a link to the tweet to be sure. And, then he just like immediately DM'd me and then called me. And that was it. And Kevin had agreed to like be involved, and he said how moved he was by the TED Talk. And then Kevin, got us people like Jason Lee, just because he was supportive of the project, and all that meant everything to me. And so that's also how we attracted people to work on it, like Alex, where like Alex was like, I want to produce anything you're making. Like, I really like you. Like, let's do this. And then, Alex, I don't know, how you feel about all of it, but like, what from your perspective, like, why did you agree to do this?
Because in Alex's head, he heard a song and it went a little bit like this. It went, it's all coming back to me.
It was very similar to that.
See? Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. When I heard Sav's pitch of the narrative projects he was working on, I was really excited about those. And obviously he had mentioned Chasing Amy. And I said, well, if you ever need a producer for any reason, like, call on me. But I wasn't really expecting him to. It seemed like he had all that he needed to make this a successful documentary. Mm-hmm. I was just really excited to watch it when it was finally done. And so the benefit of the kind of relationship that Sav and I have is that we both have a friendship and we have a creative trust with each other that has been established. And we don't always agree on things, but really, like, our relationship was based in friendship, just getting to know each other. Like, I was interested in producing his stuff, but there wasn't anything formal on the table until some of the other producers and Sav, as they were like really figuring out how to tell the full narrative in the documentary, it required some vulnerability and sharing of Sav's transition in a way that, I mean, Sav, you can chime in at any point of like, how do we do this? Because as you've said, like, there were things you didn't feel like you wanted to share, but felt like you had to. Yeah.
No, I mean, and I'm going to brag on Alex here for a second, because, he completely changed the way that I thought I had to communicate about my transition in the movie. For context, he produced this beautiful documentary called Disclosure that, goes into the last 100 years of trans representation on screen.
Great documentary. Check that out, folks, if you haven't seen it. Disclosure. Still on Netflix or no, Alex?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And spoiler alert, like, it hasn't been great for the most part. Until very recently, it hasn't, I would argue there hasn't been an abundance of, trans inclusion in storytelling that, like, I feel good about when I walk out of a theater or turn off the TV, right? Mm-hmm. Let alone directed, produced by trans people and having like a seat at that table, so to speak. And so, you're programmed how to feel about yourself. Like, that's a Vito Russo quote from The Celluloid Closet, that, the movies taught straight people how to feel about gay people and gay people how to feel about themselves. And the same can be said of trans people. And so, I felt like I had to communicate things to an audience that are really none of their business. And Alex just kind of like stopped me when I was like going through the things of like things I was uncomfortable with, but I thought maybe I had to do, because an audience might not understand me being trans otherwise. And he just said, why do you feel like you have to do that? And that question just blew my mind of like, why do I feel like I have to? Yeah. And that's the benefit of like, you know, like the buzzword authenticity, but it's the buzzword of like having collaborators who understand your life experience, who are maybe a little further ahead in that journey than you are. And also can like talk about, you know, he's consulted for the last, you know, 6 years now, I think, Alex, or 6 years total overall,
it's like
whatever.
About 8, a little over 8.
Okay, so 8 years he's been consulting on all these Hollywood projects of how to talk about trans characters, how to portray them in a way that's sensitive and audience minded. And, you know, directing this movie, I couldn't see the forest from the trees half the time because it was just so vulnerable and exhausting to like watch endless cuts of myself pre-transition, a part of myself that I would have never chosen to, you know, preserve on film otherwise if it wasn't for the sake of this story. And, you know, by giving me like the permission to think about it differently, I was able to implement it into the story in a way that just made sense with who I am as a person. And thus by like setting that boundary with the audience of like, this is my name, these are my pronouns, that's all you really need to know. And you get to watch me getting to become the fullest version of myself as a result. You know, Alex was able to help me access a version of the movie that I could live with, but also that just let the audience get to know me a little better, because that's how I am in real life of like, we don't need to talk about this. This is my private medical history in my business, you know?
Right. I mean, and it's part of just like, once you like notice and see disclosure, whether you're trans or not, you see the way that we have digested this really unhealthy, unnourishing balance of stories. And so the permission or the questions I was asking and always asking are like, does this serve the story? Is this more interesting than other things that we could think of? And ultimately, like, the ways that trans people have often been portrayed is, I would say, uninteresting, because it focuses on very specific parts of our lives to the near exclusion of the more deep, interesting, compelling parts that like are just underexplored. And so it's really also a testament to being in a trust and collaboration of being like, of number one, being able to feeling like you can ask those questions, and to the person who will receive those questions and actually think on them and like marinate and digest and move around with the discomfort that is that like interrogation. So it's really exciting to get to do that and not to be singular in any way, and like really work through. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in the film is one that is about transition, but it's not in any of the ways that I think people expect. I may not drop that here unless, Sav, you know what it is, right?
Well, I mean, let the audience know. I mean, look, if they haven't seen the movie, like, it's not a spoiler that I'm trans. We've been talking about it for the last 20 minutes.
True. It's when Kevin and Sav are talking towards the later part of the film, and Sav is thanking Kevin for his mentorship and friendship, and Kevin is thanking Sav for returning his movie to him. And in that exchange, there's both a recognition of Sav as the person he always has been, and recognition as a filmmaker. It's about both identities at once coexisting. And there was a little clip, and this is where, you know, it's that thing of like, a movie is not made until it's made, but it always seems like it came out of nowhere. Like, there was buried footage of Kevin talking about Sav, and like his voice didn't sound the same, and he couldn't see him on the Zoom screen, but then when he popped up, he looked different, his voice was different. Sav talks about being on testosterone for a minute and that this is what happens, and Sav then says like, and in the next year I'll have the beard I've always dreamed about and known myself as having. And so I love that scene, not only because I pulled it from wherever in the footage and was like, no, this is the gold moment, but like at the end of the movie, you see that his dream of being who he is has come true. And then there's so much more else that he gets to now explore once this part of the dream is sort of seen.
And I want to jump in on something you said earlier, Alex, that I think was amazing, but it's like, it's two parts. Like, one is, you said, you know, does this element, does this thing that maybe Sav is struggling with, does it serve the story? But I think ultimately what you're saying is, at least what I'm picking up is, does it serve Sav? Because it's Sav's story, right? And I think that's the reason why, well, one of the many reasons Sav has this significant connection to you, right? It's because you didn't see just a story. You didn't see just a film. You didn't see just a community. You saw Sav. Right. And you ask the question, does this serve you as a human being, not a filmmaker, as a human being? Because you know that these films that people make, these films that we make, are part of our personal legacy. This is not just a profession for us, right? This is an art that speaks from some part of who we are. And that's what you saw. You said, does this serve Sav's story? And that gave him the opportunity to think about it and be like, yeah, no, this element doesn't, but this does. And I think that's why these connections, that's why this is beautiful. That's why the collaboration as humans, the connection as humans, then creates these great opportunities for us to excel as filmmakers. So I'm clapping that though. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm clapping that all day, 100%.
Here. And I'll just amend to that from a filmmaking standpoint, something Sav said actually about, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes ago, and it just kind of came out and we moved on, but a story only he could tell. You know, one thing that we preach all the time is the 4 whys. Why me? Why now? Why this story? And then why us as investors or producers? And this is specific to like trying to pitch a film or raise funds for a film. If you're a filmmaker and you're trying to put it all together. And we give examples, historically, if you've listened to this podcast, you know this, or if you've been to one of our panels or webinars or events, you've heard us say this, or presentations. But if you haven't, basically the context is there are really, really bad whys and there are really good whys. Mm-hmm. And there is no better why you than the fact that no one else can tell this story but me. And you talk about having a narrow TED Talk. Well, that's a really narrow why as well. It's like, okay, well, it's not like this movie is going to get made by any other person on the planet
ever.
So maybe I'm in.
I gotta say, I had just recently at that time been scooped by HBO on a documentary that I wanted to make, and I was like, for sake, like I can't compete with HBO. They've got money, they got all this shit, got all this access. Yeah. Of course, these people aren't going to say yes to me. And so I was thinking, like, is there a topic that nobody else on the planet cares about but me? And it's like, well, it's like me and Kevin Smith. And Kevin Smith had already made like a 10-year anniversary, doc for like the Blu-ray or whatever. But I was like, well, you can't tell this version of the story. And I don't think anybody else has a pitch on this. And if they do, there's some sort of intellectual property theft there because
right.
like
that's my story.
That'd be too specific. But, just to go back like a second, I mean, talking about like the connection, it's hard when I think everybody on this call can relate to this. It's hard when you're coming up as a creative person, right? Yep. You have big dreams most of the time. You have a vision for yourself that I think that you see, that you question. Does anybody else see this? Am I crazy? Does anybody else care? Right? Yeah. And it's really rare when you meet another person who's like, I know what you're about. I know exactly what you want to do. I know what your voice is. And like, I want to support it. I want to be a part of it. I want to like be a partner on it with you. And it's like a really moving thing to be seen in that way. Yeah. And that's one of the things that made Alex and I just like hit it off immediately was like, I get you, we get each other. And like over time, like it strengthens and, you grow together. And it's, anybody who I work with, I feel like, saw the vision for myself before anybody else did, and like before I could even really believe it. It's like, well, I have these big dreams, but, if I don't have a community to share it with, does it really exist? And so like, I'm just infinitely thankful forever, the fact that Alex, was on that Zoom meeting and
despite his best efforts.
Well, yes, exactly.
Well, look, I want to touch on, before we get to things we should know, I just want to touch on, 2 quick things, again, filmmaking related, which is one, no one's going to make the film for you. You have to pick up the phone, call people, be willing to get out of your comfort zone. You heard Sav say he never lived outside of Kansas before the movie. The movie took him all over the place into real sort of discomfort. Right. Like the courage to stand in that, and then to make calls and to be hung up on, and to realize maybe, okay, I'm not playing within my league yet, or I'm going to put myself out there. I really want this made. So I think all filmmakers know that. But again, it's great to be reminded that almost every time you hear someone break through, it's because they put themselves out there. They tried a lot, not a little, a lot, and they busted their ass or did some great job and then got an opportunity, or went out and did that networking event and that person remembered you, and the opportunities aligned. So you got to keep going. I know you have a Reddit story as well. I want to hear the Reddit story about the trailer before we get to things we should know.
I just said a bunch of nice things about Alex. This is a story about him
flipping the script,
making the wrong call. The
mistakes in the making.
We worked on the trailer, right? And we just watched the trailer together, right? You see the format. It starts as like in a world, like voiceover, like 90s type trailer, and then it transitions into something more contemporary, right? The blending of this, and so the trailer got posted to Reddit. I don't really know how that works. Like, I wasn't part of that. But like when the trailer came out, like Alex, like the first thing he said to me was like, "Don't check Reddit." I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "My life is
like,
over."
Don't open the box. You have to open the box.
So for context, like, not only is this like my first feature, but this is a story about my real life. And so the entire time leading up to the Tribeca premiere, I'm like, if this doesn't work, like, it's not just like my career's over. Maybe my life is over. Maybe everybody will hate me. Yeah. I was like freaking the out. And so he's like, "Don't check Reddit." And I was like having panic attacks every day about this thing. And so like I went to Riley, who's the star of Chasing Amy, and also my wife, and she is a Reddit girly. Shout out to Riley. She is a Reddit girly, and so she checked for me because I was too scared. and so I was like, "What's he talking about? What's he talking about?" And she's like, "They're just shit posting. They're like, it's called Chasing Amy. So they wrote like to Chasing to Amy, like Chasing Amy 2, Electric Boogaloo, And I was like, okay. But then there was one comment that has nothing to do with Alex. It has everything to do with like, I'm on the board for the University of Kansas Film and Media Studies Professional Advisory Board. And another board member had asked me to come talk to their class because they were making personal documentaries. Yeah. And one of these Redditors was one of the kids that I had spoken to like the week prior to the trailer coming out. And apparently like some people didn't like the format of the trailer. And I'm just like, okay, that's their right, but I don't want to know about it.
Yeah. Right.
But what stuck out in my mind was the kid was like, "Hey, this trailer sucks, but like he's a really good guy who came to talk to our class."
Wow.
And I was just like, I don't think that's the compliment you think it is, kid.
Right.
That's what I was trying to shield him from. I didn't tackle it in the best way. Like, you make something, you expect people to have all different opinions, but Sav is such a personable guy. Anyway.
Yeah.
His work sucks, I made a mistake.
I need to learn.
Nice to me one time.
I need to learn from Alex though. Me and Nick have both made that mistake as producers, where we will bring up, not in a, like, we'll mistakenly bring up a bad review, and we'll be like talking to the filmmakers and saying, "Can you believe what they said? These and they don't." I'm realizing like they don't want to hear it, even if you're on their side. Like they don't want to hear that the art was criticized. And so unless it's a glowing review, just don't even bring it up. I mean, Jeremy Piven in Entourage was right. I think he has a line where he's like screaming at E, the character E, because E showed Adrian Grenier, forgetting what his character's name was in Entourage, a bad review.
I mean, here's what I'll say. And then Sav, it is his personal story. So these reviews are personal by nature of what the story is. I don't mind critical reviews because for me as a producer, I've poked all the holes for the most part. I am the most risk averse. I want to know what people could possibly think and say. So I'm seeking out critical reviews. I want to know exactly what people are thinking, because for the most part, there's an answer for it. However, this is a very particular case in that, like, it is very sensitive. Like, this is Sav's life. This is Riley's life. These are the people who were in Chasing Amy's lives that, as documentary filmmakers, and I feel particularly protective of those people that have entrusted us, and Sav feels the same way, of like making sure that like how they represented themselves is properly represented in the story we're telling. So of course people are going to have opinions, but you know, I think there's a difference with a lot of the work that we do, and this one in particular, because of that deeply personal investment in what the story is.
And here's the thing, like we're very lucky that at this point we have not gotten too many negative reviews. I'm going to knock on wood because I don't want that to happen.
Right.
I really like the movie we made. I wouldn't change a frame of it. I'm really proud of it. And also people are allowed to not like it. Like,
where can we see it again, Sav?
It's still on the festival circuit.
Okay, festival circuit. Okay. Make sure to
let
us know.
You will be able to see it soon. We are having some really great conversations about where we are going to be able to exhibit it. So
okay, good. I just want the audience to be able to like leave this inspired and go watch it right away.
Absolutely. So. I mean, and I want people to watch it, but also if you don't like it, one, like, be cool. It is my real life. But second, what you think about me and the movie we made is genuinely none of my business.
Right. So don't share it. Right.
It's just like, don't tag me. I don't know. Like,
right.
Like, they can tag me. I'm good.
Oh my God. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's genuinely none of my business, but also like, you know, life is messy and complicated and fucking hard. Yeah. And it doesn't always like fit into like a perfect 3-act structure. I'm kind of shocked that mine, I feel like it did. But it's also like, you know, these are real people's lives and feelings. And so like, if I saw like a review that critiqued like, you know, like a specific choice I made as a filmmaker and was like, this didn't work for this reason for me or whatever, like, fine, whatever. But if it's like you know, this guy sucks and this movie sucks and like is a total waste of time, I'm like, well, that can't possibly be true. Like, that can't possibly
it's trolling.
be true.
It's not necessary, and it's nonsense. That's the stuff we throw away. But real quick, I know we're about to jump into some things we should know, but I did want to, you know, and I'm good at throwing stuff back because I hold on to stuff, especially because I do think that I'm somewhat of I do think I'm somewhat of an empath. Chris is an idiot. So I was just thinking about one thing that I do want to leave, I think, with the audience from the conversation about, you know, Sav's introduction to Alex and the connection that they had there. I'm mentioning this because it gave me a visual. And the visual was this. I think there's a significant difference when you're meeting people, when you're engaging people and networking. Because we just did a webinar that we were talking about film festivals and the importance of networking, right? Yeah. And there's a significant difference between the person who shakes your hand and the person who puts their hand on your shoulder. It's the difference between listening and hearing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing. Like, honestly, as soon as you guys were talking, like, that was the thing that hit me. I was like, that's it. Like, Alex put his hand on Sav's shoulder. That's when Sav knew, like, this guy hears me. He's not just listening to what I'm saying. Everybody does that, right? Like, you know, he hears me. Yep. And because of that connection, now we have what we have. We have Chasing Amy. We've got conversations with distributors. We've got messages that are going out there to help people. Yeah. Exactly. We got a beautiful festival run. We've got awards. And what I'm getting at is to our audience, like, when you're networking, when you're introducing yourself to people, think about that. There's a difference between the handshake and the person that puts their hand on your shoulder. Sav,
you know, Nick,
Alex, go ahead.
I love that. And before you go, Sav, because I have this visual now that you just so beautifully put, it's not only putting a hand on someone's shoulder, it's also like just reaching out of even the people in that. And what I was drawn to about Sav and in the sort of sphere of networking is, whenever I would see him out and about, I like to observe. I like to see how people treat people who they think can give them nothing. because that is the testament of what your character actually is. And this business is transactional. We all know that, but you can choose who you surround yourself with. I watched Sav as someone who hadn't made a first feature, talking to people, introducing himself, and then saying, how can I help you? How can I support you? And this is someone who is not as established as a lot of people who he was talking to, and basically being like, if I can help you, I'm here for it. Right. And I think it's that kind of like reaching forward and reaching back and putting hands on each other's shoulders in a way that you so much better put it, Nick, than I am. But like, I think there's a generosity that like I appreciate in Sav, and it's also what I try to implement in the ways that like I'm collaborating, because it's hard out there. You want to do it with people you feel good winning and losing with. And so I just wanted to say, I'm glad you see that image, and I also see it, and now it's moving in my head a little bit.
That's awesome.
And Sav, I know you had something to add to that.
I was just going to say, if you're shaking people's hands, unless you're Beyonce, don't do the Beyonce handshake. Because that's extremely patronizing. I think y'all know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And if you're watching the podcast, here's a visual. You shake somebody reaches for your hand, and you clasp the other side of their hand while shaking it, and the energy is nice of you to meet me.
You can't see it, but it's horrendous. I just watched it happen. Oh,
this will be on YouTube, and I'll mark this. Kate,
yep.
Don't ever do that.
Love that handshake.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Don't ever
slow motion.
Here's the thing. I don't like being talked down to. People think a lot of things that I don't know anything. Like I think it's the fact that like I have like Midwestern manners, like, you know, like they're just like, oh, this yokel doesn't know shit. And it's like, oh, nice of you to meet me. And it's like, that's not the energy here. Please don't do that.
Yeah. Right.
So it just goes to show, if you genuinely want to build a relationship with a person, treat them like an equal, even if that's, you know what I mean? Like, don't be a dick. I don't know.
Sav, I got it for you, bro.
Nice,
like, no. Get the antibacterial, keep it in your pocket. Okay. If anybody ever gives you that handshake, immediately take the antibacterial out.
Or just send them to this link, this YouTube
That's right.
link.
There you go. Exactly.
Timestamped at the slow motion.
That's right. Don't do that.
Don't you ever fucking do that.
That's right. Don't do that shit. We're not.
Unless you were Beyonce herself. And if Beyonce listens to the show, we love you. Thank you so much.
love you, B. Beehive, we love you too. Don't come after us. But it is an inappropriate handshake.
You can't. We don't want
Again,
that.
We're saying nobody but Beyonce is allowed to do it.
Exactly. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, let's go. Where's PB, man? Where's PB?
Producer Papa Bear, why don't you join us for some things we should know? Hello.
Hey.
You look like Michael Landon.
Michael Landon. Did he have the beard?
What is
Little House on the Prairie?
Little House on the Prairie? Yeah. Good job. Looking like a sexy Michael Landon. Why don't you drop some things we should know on the four of us? I'm pumped for this. I cannot wait to see what you have for us.
This should be easy, actually. This is it's kind of going to flip the script a little bit. We've been talking about reaching out and pulling someone along. This is about those who are pushing back.
Okay.
So who was the first major movie director to call for boycotting making films in a particular state that had laws denying transgender bathroom rights? And what state was it? Who was the director?
Wow. Can you repeat that? Because you read that a little bit.
That's a lot. Well, Sav's like chomping at the bit.
I know the state, and the director's on the tip of my tongue.
Read the question one more time, Papa Bear.
Who was the first major movie director to call for boycotting making films in this particular state where there were laws denying trans bathroom rights? And what was the state?
Oh God, I know this too. Okay, I'll go first.
Look,
Nick, you go second, and then
I'm not going second.
We'll go Alex
Sav knows
Sav.
the answer. I'm just going with Sav. Whatever Sav says.
So you're gonna
duplicating that answer.
You're gonna hide behind the genius of Sav. Look at you.
I'm not even hiding. I'm looking over at his paper.
Is this like when you give a producer credit to somebody who showed up on set and helped with Crafty? Like what is happening right now?
I'm looking at his paper, bro. I'm like, what does he got? It's C. It's C.
What did you actually do in the film?
I
brought burritos.
Copied his paper. That's what I did.
Okay. This happened in North Carolina, right, Papa Bear?
You're right.
Yep.
And I don't know why can't I see Papa Bear? There he goes. He's back.
Yeah, he disappeared.
Okay. I think it's North Carolina, and I think the filmmaker is
director.
Director. Yeah, good call, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Holy hell. It was
No, I don't know what that is. Is that a language?
It's on the tip on the tip of my brain. I can't think of it. Nick, do you want to go? Do you want to give it a shot?
No, I don't.
No. Alex, you want to give it a shot?
Alex, you're right.
We'll let Alex guess. Alex could guess next.
Well, I'm guessing I know Sav knows what it is.
I don't know if I do know the director. I knew the state. I didn't know the director.
Okay, so we're all in agreement that it's North Carolina, right?
North Kakalaka.
We're all going North
Carolina.
Carolina.
Confirmation on that.
Papa Bear, can we get confirmation it's North Carolina?
It is. It is.
God, I know this, man.
It's been nearly a decade now, so it's okay. We're getting older. I think it's Rob Reiner, but you tell me.
Okay. Does anybody else have a guess before Papa Bear reveals the truth?
That's a great guess. I would bet Rob. I would bet Rob Reiner if.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go with Tyler Perry.
Okay, you're going Tyler Perry. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Because he's kind of like right around the corner.
Yeah, that's true.
He was doing some things at the time, and he definitely did try to change the game. You like that? Change the game for folks and introduce some new stuff.
In the pantheon of completely wrong answers, it feels like I should just say like Billy Crystal or Harmony Korine.
I know, right?
Billy Crystal, known for directing, yes.
Right, exactly.
Just like in the pantheon of the completely wrong answers.
Because Tyler Perry wasn't making movies in North Carolina.
Someone that plays a director in a movie.
Someone that plays a director.
There you go.
Albert
It's
Brooks.
them. You're right.
Well, he also is a director.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. He's a director.
It's Mel Brooks. I don't know.
There's Mel Brooks. There's Albert Brooks.
There's Mel Brooks too.
I would bet Mel Brooks is an ally.
I would see it because he's. I mean, look, man. The stuff that he does, and I feel like there's inclusion, like across the the diversity spectrum in Mel Brooks's films. But again, why North Carolina? Like, why would you boycott North Carolina specifically? Who wanted to make films in North Carolina?
This is before everybody had a bill.
This is before everybody
had a bill.
Yeah, okay. And I'm just thinking about who wants to make a movie in North Carolina. But go ahead.
So Alex is going Rob Reiner. Nick is going Tyler Perry. I'm going to go Ava DuVernay. Okay.
Oh.
Okay, Papa Bear.
Okay.
Drop it on us. What? Yeah. We're all wrong on the director, right?
No, Alex is right. It's Rob Reiner.
Oh! Yes, Rob Reiner, baby.
That is wild. That's wild.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rob Reiner, man.
That's right.
Your gift card is
Twitter follow as well.
Right.
You know what? You know why you can rewatch Rob Reiner movies? I don't remember a bunch of transphobic slurs in those.
Yep.
I don't remember a bunch of. We're not getting the soap dish treatment. Thank you, Rob Reiner.
That's what's
shout
up.
out to Rob Reiner.
And
thank you.
Shout out to Papa Bear.
I was going to say, what a question.
Yes.
Jeez.
Well, and look at all that Rob Reiner had to endure with Archie Bunker.
Yep.
Ooh, there you go. Yep.
I don't know. You guys are too young.
I love All in the Family.
I love about, man?
Classic TV.
Hey, just so you know, I got the vinyl right over there.
Oh, okay.
All in the Family vinyl sitting up there. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, buddy.
I don't know what that says about you.
It says everything about me, man. It's right next to my Nat
But
King
it also
Cole,
is. But it is also perfect. It's also like exactly you. You're special. Like all of our moms all told us. And by the way, we were talking about this. Alex was talking about this earlier. And I couldn't agree more. And I just had this thought in my head, like, you're spot on that in film, the mistake storytellers make, whether it be sort of a mistake of budget or of actually sort of economy of page on a script or whatever it may be, but in narrative, we tend to make groups and people monoliths. And trans is not a monolith. It's not just one subject. It's not just one lifestyle. It's not just one approach. And neither are Black people, and neither are women, neither are Native American. Like, we got to stop with the trying to tell a monolithic story about an entire group of people. Nick is, you know, a Black man with an All in the Family vinyl.
Yes. Who builds Legos. And just so y'all know, because Alex and Sav, people get confused. This is not a green screen, my damies, right? Those are real Legos that I made on my wall,
my God.
guys. Yes,
I'll give you a challenge, Nick.
Yeah, no
Master
set, just
builder.
bricks. Yeah, see, he knows what's up, Master. That's what I do, guys.
Are you going to go on that show?
You see, that's what I should. What you got challenge for me, PB?
Well, make a Lego Archie bunker.
Okay, I'm on it.
You know it's going to happen tomorrow.
Like now I'm on it. I'm like, man,
you know he's going to have one tomorrow, right?
Can you do the whole family around the piano?
You see, you know, and
no, that's a challenge.
That's a challenge.
Archie, I don't know if I can do it, Archie.
It's so good.
So good. You have to take this path. There's got to be the voice work is on point.
You know what I'm saying? There's something for me out there. There's something for me. But yeah, all right. I'm on Archie Bunker now. Dang it.
Thank you, Papa Bear. For another things we should know. I'm smarter. Right. We're all smarter thanks to that. And that is definitely a thing we and the audience should know. So I appreciate you per usual. You and your beautiful, beautiful locks. And Nick, why don't we hop into this week's? Are you going to give it to us?
Culture check.
Jesus Christ. It scares me every time you do that. God dang it.
I got to catch you off guard.
And it still scared me.
And I got to catch you off guard with that, bro. I know you knew, but you didn't know you knew. So here's the deal. All right. And this is kind of weird how it worked out, you know, because the title Chasing Amy, and then you got Chasing Amy. And I'm just telling you legitimately, like, this was on my mind. And this isn't something I thought of just because of Chasing Amy. But it's about representation. And this is my question, okay? And I'm going to get into it a little bit. My question in this culture check is, why are we chasing Hollywood? Okay, and here's the thing. Why do I need trans representation in Hollywood? Why do I need Black representation in Hollywood? Why do I need more women representation in Hollywood? Why is it got to be Hollywood? Because what I kind of feel, believe, and maybe even know is true is that filmmaking is one of the most diverse arts that exists on this planet. It is not lacking inclusion. It is not lacking diversity. But Hollywood is. Why are we chasing Hollywood? Why do we care? Why do we want trans representation on the Oscar stage, right? In the Academy Awards? Why do we want that so bad? Why are we chasing that? Why aren't we creating new avenues for these voices to speak? There is a friend of the podcast, right? That's Kristen Baker, right? She's got Tello Films, right? I found out just recently that there's Reverie, right? Why aren't we, the communities that have been so underrepresented, promoting those platforms, putting our content on those platforms, bringing people to those platforms, not to say, hey, go here, but let you know we are represented there. We're comfortable there. We're happy there. We're seen there. I was thinking about it for Black folks, right? And I was like, could you imagine if the slaves were like, hey, I want Massa's house? That's not what they say. Slaves say, I want my own house. I want 40 acres and a mule. I want my own property, right? So why are the underrepresented seeking masses house? Why do we want Hollywood? Why do we want all those things? Why don't we build something, right, that is ours, that is fully representative of the mixture, of the diversity, the inclusion of all of these stories? And I think that's basically my culture check. I'm like, I don't get it. Like, why do we want from them that which they don't want to give us? Just go somewhere else. Build something else. Build something so monolithic, right, that then they look up to us, right? So that's my question for you guys. Why are we chasing Hollywood?
I love this question, and I think that we're going to get to share like the both and of it, because I think I shared a statistic in my last time here in 2021 that is still true to this day, that more Americans believe they've seen a ghost than met someone who's transgender. And what we know of film and television is that it is one of the most expedient ways of personally familiarizing someone out in the world if we can't go door to door. So, Nick, I agree with you. It's like if they don't want us, they don't get to have us. And I think there's an opportunity to push these institutions towards better art form, more creativity, refreshing stories that inevitably include us, because that's reflection of the world. And we know that familiarity, especially when it's personal, breeds acceptance. We need acceptance really badly right now. It is not easy to be trans out in the world, especially if you're a trans person of color. So I think it's a both and, because there is no lack of creativity with storytellers, with the community and the kind of like art that we're creating. And we're not reaching those people who could be potential allies and accomplices if we're not naturally included in stories that are representing the world. I mean, if we look also at data, it's like 1 in 5 Gen Z calls themselves LGBTQ. Well, then if there are at least 5 characters in any TV show or movie, one of them should be LGBTQ. And it's the same of people of color. Like, this is the most racially and ethnically diverse cohort of young people coming up. So I think it's a push. We have to push Hollywood to reflect the reality with which we live, and we should be supporting those places that already support and want us to be there. And I think there are different like objectives and purposes to be in both places. It's not as if one should exist without the other. In fact, they cannot exist without each other, in my opinion.
Okay. Sav, what you got?
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Alex just said in terms of like the importance of being included and demanding, you know, that the world around us be reflected and not just in the worst ways possible, right? So not just seeing trans trauma porn on TV. Yeah. You know, I can think of a few storylines of including trans characters where I'm just like, was that the choice to make? Okay, great. Moving on. You know, I will say from a filmmaking perspective, this is a business, and businesses need money to be able to operate. And I can go out and raise up to a certain budget level for an independent film, but I cannot fundraise at the studio level. I cannot get a $50 million budget for my dream project independently. Most filmmakers can't. There's also the consideration, because you need to be able to pay people. God, I would love to not pay people on a favored nations basis and making sure that everybody gets their full day rate for a film. That's the day that I think I will feel successful as a filmmaker, is the day where every single person on set gets their full day rate without negotiation.
See Jerry Seinfeld's new movie Unfrosted for an example of that, where everybody got paid an enormous amount of money for just something he was bored at the house thinking about. Anyway, go ahead.
No comment on that movie.
Right. We'll move on.
It's a movie about Pop-Tart?
I'm not unsold on the premise. Anyway, here's the thing for like Alex said, like I dream big, right? And in terms of distribution, you know, the movies that I dream of are like Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit, things that are really the Truman Show, things that are really innovative within the cinematic space. And you need money to be able to do most of that. Money is not, creativity, you can always get around things. I think a healthy budget cap can actually breed more creativity than if you just had an infinite amount of money to do anything.
The constraints, yeah.
Yeah, but I also needed to connect with an audience. And we're in a phase where people are building a lot of new things. But I want millions of people to see the work that I'm making. And right now, there are a handful of traditional distributors who are able to provide that. All distribution has to be active distribution. You can't just give your film over to someone and be like, okay, this is over, bye. Yep. Make sure this is marketed, by the way.
Amen.
You have to be an active participant in the distribution process. And studios get to do that on a very high level where they send their stars out on press tours. Look at the Barbie press tour. That is active distribution. Yep. They spent a ton of money in marketing, but they made all of that back because they made a feel-good movie. Yeah, and they sent all of the A-list talent around the world to get people excited. They did the Barbie outfits. They did all that stuff.
50 to 100 maybe.
Yeah, and I don't have that kind of money. I don't, I'm making social media posts being hey,
but
come
Sav,
see that movie.
I gotta jump in real quick though. So this is what I'm saying. So of course it's a yes and, as Alex said, right? And I agree with you. But what I'm saying is beyond filmmaking. What I'm saying is that Hollywood doesn't own all the money. There's money in a lot of places. A lot of people have it. And I'm just trying to figure out why the people with the money that are part of these communities aren't creating these avenues for success. There are people who make multiple millions of dollars a day, right? Who are part of these communities that would still rather put the money into Hollywood and figure out and let Hollywood do their thing than create their own avenue. You can do marketing without Hollywood. It's not specific, right? So that's my thing. It's a bigger, broader thing. Why aren't these communities saying, you know what? We have resources. We got money. Let's just do it without you. Because here's my issue, guys, right? Here's my issue. My issue is that sometimes the representation that you get from Hollywood, and when I say you, it's all of us, because I see it from me too, as an African-American male, is not representative of me. That's someone's interpretation of my representation. So why continue to flood the money into Hollywood instead of creating new entities and new avenues where the representation is, as Alex was saying earlier, should be authentic? And that's my issue. I'm telling you right now, when I watch women stuff and I watch black people stuff and I watch transgender and I watch gay stuff in Hollywood, I don't like any of it. I'm like, y'all are too on the nose with this crap. It's in my face. It's not
Nick,
authentic.
how would you find the other stuff if they're not being marketed? And there's so many.
No, you can market it though. In marketing, do you know how many marketing companies there are in the world? There's a bajillion of them. I think bajillion is an actual number. What I'm saying, you're going like this. People have money. It doesn't. I know, but what I'm saying is that not all money is in Hollywood. There are people who are part of the LGBTQ community, just like there's black folks who have a grip of money who could put behind these films to do the marketing. It's not specific or peculiar to Hollywood. And that's what I'm saying. That's the next step, right? It may not be happening now. And I see where you are, Sav, 100%. We get it. It's all in Hollywood. They got it. And if you're a filmmaker, that's what you want. I'm just saying that the community these communities, right, could really do themselves a service by saying, we actually don't need that. We can do marketing on our own. We can do distribution on our own. We can get authentic filmmakers, authentic storytellers on our own. They can get it to the theaters on their own. They can put it on streaming or create their own streaming avenue on their own. So what is it that maybe, again, I just don't know, that Hollywood's got a lock on?
It's not a lock, but what you're really advocating for is the creation of another Hollywood. and
or multiple.
And Hollywood was already created by a group of people who were being discriminated against. They literally fled New York and moved to LA. That's why Hollywood exists where it's at, for Jewish people. So it happened once before. Maybe it could happen again. But
but what did the Jewish people do? They connected themselves to financiers. That was the shift in Hollywood.
But that's also is unique historical thing of Jewish people were kicked out of every other industry except for financing and art.
Yep.
So that was a form of survival. So yes. Nick, I'm not disagreeing.
Yep.
However, we live in an attention economy. So and if success is measured by a certain distance that you go in the traditional forms in Hollywood, it's hard to get people to invest if we haven't redefined what success looks like.
Ooh.
So I think getting even underneath the Hollywood of it all and then creating our own Hollywood, because I'm a firm believer in that there are institutions that exist and we can create our own, but we also need to be changing those institutions from the inside.
Yep.
That's why I work at GLAAD fundamentally, and creating our own stuff to compete, to be an alternative that is something that people want to go toward. And I think it's hard because there are so many different now channels that are trying to compete rather than banding together, combining those resources, frankly, because there's so much. So I think we're all in agreement. It's just the money is tied to what the definition or the appearance of success is. And we haven't yet established an alternative that people feel excited and compelled toward to put into because they want to feel that comeback. That's what I think.
I believe in you, Alex.
We could talk about this for another hour. That's how deep the subject really goes when you talk about it from a detail standpoint. And look, I mean, again, I'm what Alex said. I don't disagree with you, but I think there's pushback to be had there because it's another one of those. Here's the philosophy, but here's the practical. It's impossible to disagree with you philosophically and principally. Like it's perfectly put out. It seems like it makes sense, but when you get down into the practical, I've been in rooms with investors. If you just say the word movie, it leaves them running to the door. So it's already a scary investment. It's because an investor that has a lot of money isn't looking for 15% back in the waterfall. Or 30% or whatever they get. They're looking for an 100 and they're looking for
30x.
10. They want 100x minimum. They want the next unicorn. They want Uber. And they have a choice. Like, yes, there's a lot of money, but there's also savvy. Am I going to be a savvy investor? And maybe I'm a fund manager even. Am I going to be a savvy investor and invest in this film that I have no track record on of success? Or am I going to invest in this brand new net new technology, which, by the way, when Hollywood was invented, to Alex's point, was a net new technology. If you create another Hollywood, you are essentially trying to cash their lottery ticket again. And instead of having something net new that everybody could invest in, Nick, what you would end up with is an echo chamber. And so that's where I agree with Sav. He said exactly what I was going to say. It's a business. You don't want to make movies where you're going to get glad handed back and forth and you're going to give each other lip service over and over because we're the same. And then there's a sense of broad messaging. How do you change the world if you're not presenting your films to the broadest possible audience, which means you have to bring more people in. You can't just have a section that's about this group or that group or whatever. I think there's a lot of considerations you have to give to the importance of fighting the good fight and trying to get the broad message out to people who aren't necessarily already your friend.
Yeah,
right?
I think what Alex was saying also about changing the narrative is important. Again, I think it's like you said, it's a yes and, because I think there's avenues in those specific areas. But what I was saying is I wasn't saying let's just go LGBTQ and then let's go in this direction and go African American, and then this direction is women. No, what I'm saying is all of them band together. You know what I'm saying? Like all of them band together and say we are represented.
Yeah.
And but it's a yes and, because again, like back to what Sav was saying, it's all like the zeitgeist is what it is today. Right. So let's address what it is today, and maybe at the same time build something else.
This could
but
work.
Let's get the benefit of what exists. But
this
Sav
could work
something.
in 2070 when white people are no longer 74% of American population, and most of the population would like to see themselves represented on screen. And when they're not, it would become frustrating to that point. That's just my thought of it. And the other thing too, I just want to mention this, and maybe it doesn't matter to you, Sav, maybe it doesn't matter to you, Alex and Nick, but it matters to me. There's a human part of this. I grew up wanting to tell stories to broad audiences. I have an ego about it. I want to win awards. The fact of the matter is, when we all die, we become fiction. And that's why human beings love stories, because it's how we keep important people and nefarious people alive. The memory of it, we pass it down, right? It's a Native American tradition, but we all sort of share it. It's an African worldview position or tradition where we pass down these stories, because once you're gone, all anybody can say about you is through a memory, which fades more and more every day. So while we're here, we want to be appreciated for our work. We want to be awarded. It means something to get an Oscar. It means something to get an Emmy. It means something to get a GLAAD award. Like, these things matter while we're still here, because now it's not fiction, it's real. This is who I am. I'm building my legacy. So there's a human part. Maybe that only matters to me. But anyway, Sav, I know you got something.
No, it only matters to you. Go ahead, Sav. Nobody wants an Oscar or an Emmy. Forget that crap.
Couldn't disagree more.
I was just going to, the thing that I was going to add is, like, okay, let's say everybody decided to band together and we're saying, Hollywood as we know it now, we're going to create our own thing, which is ostensibly the same, but we're going to do it over here, and you guys can off, right?
Yeah.
The problem is that this business is built on hurt children who grow up to be hurt adults who, like, nobody who works in entertainment is, like, doing fine. Like,
several truth bombs being dropped in this podcast today.
Yeah.
None. We're all just, like, hoping people like us, and we're in a business seeking attention and hoping people like our little stories and that we can break through and we could be the one, and we're the ones that, get the overnight success at Sundance and things like that. So you create a new system, and you have not eliminated the problem of, well, even people from marginalized communities struggle with these same things. Ego, hurting other people, perpetrating harm to each other. It's not going to be kumbaya just because we were ousted over here.
That's right.
It's going to be, it's going to be having to still deal with the perpetual issue, which is, how can you love other people and also hate other people? How can you deal with the hurt that just comes with constantly putting yourself out there just to be set up for rejection? Because if we cloned Hollywood with all of us over here, there's still like the, hey, do you want to work with me? Not really. And then, like, you take that as like a chip on your shoulder, and you're like, well, they don't like me and the system hates me. Meanwhile, it's just a bunch of, like, deeply fearful people trying to protect their jobs, trying to make sure that the money that they put in doesn't get wasted. Because this industry is just built on fear, and it makes it worse that we're all tied to the fucking stock market now, and that is driving decision making versus artful storytelling. Yeah. It used to be that studio heads were studio heads and understood how movies work, and now
this is so crazy bringing this up.
They are CEOs of corporations that are concerned about their bottom line, and they don't really care how they get there. How many people they hurt.
They're heads of private equity firms and venture capital.
And they're like, we have no money. And their bonuses are between, $50 and $100 million.
Right.
But they're like, oh, we're out of money. We might be declaring bankruptcy. So, like, that's the realty, in my opinion, of just, like, it's a business built on, fear. And that is the thing. But the beautiful thing about independent film, when you can do it, and you can, even if you're not making a ton of money, but the beautiful thing is that everybody's there because they give a shit. And they're, most of the time, I would argue, they're at least willing to look a little inwards and think, like, can I put aside my own hurt feelings and ego for a second for the sake of this story? Can I cooperate with other people? Because I'm not getting paid enough to do this if I don't love it.
Yeah.
And so, it's that Mark Duplass thing of, like, well, the cavalry's not coming. And that's true. Yeah. The cavalry is not coming for us. but we can build our own systems, and we all become our own little Artists United, one group of people at a time. And ideally, there's this interoperability between us, and we're lifting each other up, and we're recommending for each other, and we're telling each other about opportunities, and like, hey, if you talk to this person, they can do that. And that's the beauty of independent film. And like, I would love a $50 million studio budget to make some of my sticks ideas come true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's going to take a long time to get there. Because even with Chasing Amy, it's like, I feel like we pulled off a hat trick, because there was every reason for this movie to fail on paper, through production, through post-production. You had a director who was having a mental breakdown every time he had to watch a cut. Alex can attest to that. But we pulled it off, right? And I'm like so proud of the movie that we made. I think it's a good movie, and not everybody has to agree. But then I go into these development meetings hoping like, okay, like, hey, I made a feature. You said I needed to make a feature. And they're like, not that kind of feature.
Oh.
Do you know how to talk to actors? Like, I'm not sure you know how to talk to actors. And I'm just like, well, did you see the interview I did with the fucking actor in this movie? I can handle that situation. I think I can handle telling them where to fucking walk. God damn it. So that is the most that's the most open I've been on a podcast.
I've been doing press with this guy for over a year. This is the realest he's been, and I think it's legit what he's saying. Of like, there are always going to be struggles and feelings of perceived scarcity, whether that's a reality or not. And so it's like, band with the people you believe in and want to be a better person with, because all this stuff, as Sav likes to say, like, it's all made up.
Yep.
It's all made up. I mean, granted, people should be able to make a living by doing it, and currently they are not able to, which is where the money thing comes in. Like, a lot of people aren't able to do this full time. They got to get other jobs. They got to make ends meet. That is not a sustainable living for most people. And so that favors a certain level of privilege and or just stretching yourself to a thinness that is not healthy for anyone. So it's like, what Sav, you said is beautiful about independent filmmaking. Like, you got to be in it for the right reasons, because you're certainly not in it for the wrong ones.
Nice.
Truly. I shouldn't say more, or else this is off the rails. But it's corporate greed. I don't want to work in a fucking system that rewards the behaviors that it does, and rewards like the endless star of it all. And don't get me wrong, I love a celebrity. I love paying attention to pop culture. I would call myself a pop culture documentarian at the end of the day, if I had to define what I did as a documentary filmmaker.
Okay.
And there is so much more that is being lost in this than just, like, are we seeing ourselves on screen? It's like, can we make a living doing this? Will there be jobs after this? What the WGA did and what SAG-AFTRA did was fucking brave. They stood up in the face of adversity and said, we're going to make sure that you can live. We're going to try to make sure that you can live in Los Angeles to actually do your fucking job.
Yep.
For the next generation coming up. And they sacrificed a lot to, like, hold the line, so to speak. And so between the pandemic and the strikes, people have just made excuses for why we can't do this and why we can't do that. Oh, we can't acquire anything now. Oh, but our CEO's getting $100 million bonus. This is the reality that we live in, and we do have to fight for a better future. And we have to fight that on the independent film front, so that there's an audience for our movies, holding distributors accountable, holding studios accountable. And so it's like, we can't just throw the system away, I don't think, because it's what we have.
That's
but
right.
we can choose to deviate outside of it and work together and make some shit and be good to each other. And a lot of people don't choose that route. But I think everybody on this podcast, anybody who's listening to this podcast who gives a shit enough about their craft, like, will do that.
That's right. That's why it's a yes and that's what Alex said too. Yeah, yes and let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, it's a little secret I'll share.
Ooh.
A little secret that everybody should know before we wrap up here and bit of due to these wonderful.
Love some hot goss.
It's a little secret that new filmmakers, independent filmmakers should know, which is that a lot of distributors' business model is not your business model. How they make money is not aligned with how you will make money and how you will create a legacy or build up enough funds from your film to make your next film. And that is one of the biggest problems, practical problems, like not philosophic, but like on the ground problems filmmakers have right now. You're going to distribute my movie. You made me a bunch of promises up front. You kept half of them, if that. And the way you make money is a scaled approach to managing films versus taking my film as an individual thing and selling it into the best and deepest and most profitable markets, right? And you just don't know that sometimes on the front end. It's a little secret. It's just like, hey, okay, the pitch you gave me is how great my film is and how bad you want to represent it. Then on the back end, you've got, shout out to 25-year-olds, but you've got some 25-year-olds trying to sell my movie in a 50-film slate to Paramount Plus. We didn't talk about that part. I thought there would be an experienced salesperson selling my movie as an individual entity so that I can make some money and enjoy some profitability as well. A little secret. That's all.
So the last thing I will say is I've recently started a role at Seed and Spark, which is a terrific crowdfunding platform.
Yep. Shout out to Emily.
Shout out to Emily. Yep. Love Emily. She hates that I'm going to say this, but she is my boss.
We love Emily best. She is the best.
She is the best. And she has been working for years along with other people within Seed and Spark to create this thing called the distribution down low. And if you can request
DDL.
Seed and Spark to do this presentation at your local festival or organization or whatever, can do it. There is an invaluable amount of information in there that I wished that I had a month ago as we've been negotiating things for Chasing Amy. Mm-hmm. These people really understand what is broken about the distribution system. And in an environment where everybody's, cutting costs, everybody's trying to get leaner and everything like that, independent filmmakers are the one who get most in this scenario.
They're the taxpayer.
And so I highly recommend, if you want to build your own ecosystem, check out the educational resources on this thing. Like I used them before I worked there. Yeah. I used them, before Chasing Amy. Like you can cultivate your own communities and ecosystems. And that's what it's all about as an independent filmmaker. And it's why filmmakers, we keep talking about Mark Duplass, but it's a reason that he's like so gung-ho on Seed and Spark is because it cultivates this like kind of community. I promise this is not a sales pitch. I've never done a sales pitch for a day job I've had in my life.
Listen. When you're passionate about something, speak on it, right? You don't let anything hold you back. So we appreciate that.
Yep.
And so this resource, it's called the Distribution Down Low. Seek it out. It will tell it's all of this information condensed on what every independent filmmaker should know before they make a movie so that they can actually design a sales plan where they're not floundering.
Yep.
And they don't know where they're going to go. And that's the big kicker right now with independent film. You can raise money, you can do crowdfunding, you can build community, but if nobody sees your movie, what's going on? Yeah. You got to find a way to get it out there.
You're moving to a giant red ocean. This is fantastic. And as my brain is sloshing around in Beaujolais, taking down, I think, a bottle during this conversation, I will end us on this because you guys are documentary filmmakers. I just wanted to know your thoughts about the sort of death of bankruptcy of participant media. I mean, that was surprising. That was a shock, right? They had 135 films, and I don't think there was a bad one in the group.
It was especially shocking because I think we had sent our film to them 2 weeks before. So,
no flipping way.
Fucking brutal.
Yeah.
Alex, I mean, I've been talking a lot, but I'm devastated because the loss of participant is a loss for cinema, filmmakers, and audiences.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think you said it all. It's devastating. That's the only way to put it. And I think they, as a company, have stood for so much, have produced such incredible works over the years. I mean, A Fantastic Woman being one among them. Devastating. And it means that we have a lot of work to do in their absence.
And I think it goes to show what we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes, which is they don't have it all figured out financially. Like, you have 135 movies where half of them were great and a third of them won the highest awards in industry, and you still can't afford to stay open. You know why studios want to lean on AI, and why a Bob Iger would come out and say the things he said during the strike. And at the same time, you totally get why the writers and actors would strike and why the directors would go to get a new deal, et cetera, because we also have to make a living while the cost of living goes up. And I don't know if the two things are aligned anymore. No streamer is profitable but Netflix. And it took them a long time to actually turn a profit, to actually have money in the black. So we got to figure out a way as an industry to make it more affordable to make films.
And I would say too, on the interpersonal,
and make it more affordable to live in America, by the way. But yeah, go ahead, Alex.
I mean, we have to make it bearable, and hopefully more than bearable, actually enjoyable, or at the very least livable. Like, I think, and that's from an interpersonal place too. That's like, I felt for a while, and I don't know if we got into this the last time. It's been a few years. My memory as I grow older is not as good as it used to be.
I said we talked a year ago. It was 3 years ago.
Right, exactly. Time, what is it? I like to be a whole person as we do this work, so that we're not recreating or replicating the harms that have been done to us. Like, we have to take care of ourselves. And if that means, as in my case, I have a full-time job, which fortunately is connected to this industry, and I have a lot of insight from the work I do, but like, that allows me to independently produce. I felt really bad about that for a long time, that I was being cowardly of the creative pursuits that I wanted to go after. And ultimately, I think knowing that, like, for many people, this is not sustainable, and admitting that and being honest about that is at least better than pretending that everything is okay and everyone is fine. Because for the most part, as you said, like, we're not. There is no grand plan. People are sort of going all different directions to figure out a way. And so, like, if we can at least be honest about that, then we can find solutions together and share that knowledge, and not be deceived, or the word is escaping me right now, but put in a place of unrealistic expectations. Like, let's be honest, and let's move from that place of what we know is real and true, and do it with people that we like spending time with, hopefully.
Yeah, it couldn't be said better. Here.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to that. Please, I think people have looked at the journey of Chasing Amy, which from the outside is certainly, it looks like a Cinderella story. I gave a TED Talk. Kevin gets involved. I have this movie now that has great reviews. It's my first feature, right? Yep. I work 2 part-time jobs right now. I'm a barista at Starbucks. My shift starts at 4 a.m. And then I go from that job to my Seed and Spark job. And then at night now, I'm hoping to have time to develop new ideas, to talk to people, to do the things I'm supposed to do to keep progressing the filmmaking stuff.
True.
But I was on 30 Under 30 in November, 2 months after getting laid off from my agency job in September.
Yeah.
That is how fucking fake all of this is.
Yep. I tell you, and that's the thing, and this is one of the things that I always say, and Chris echoes it as well, is just filmmakers are people too.
Yep.
Right? Like, that's it. And I think that it was great having a conversation with, Chris had an interview with Micah Sims, just not just a guest of the podcast, but, a friend and a co-filmmaker. But one of the things he said, we asked him a question about, what it means to make it. And he kind of reflected. He's like, when we adopted another kid, and like, I just want to be a great dad.
Yep.
I think that's the part that people forget, or the part that people ignore. It's like, yeah, I'm a filmmaker and this is my passion. This is my art, but I want to be a great dad. Oh man, like hit my heartstrings, right? It's like, that's not all that I am, is this thing that you see. I'm also so many other things, right? So I want to be, like Alex said, I want to be a great human. I want to live my life. I want to be happy as a human being. And being happy as a human being is being happy as a filmmaker, but it's also being happy as a dad, or as a guy who makes Legos, or whatever those things are, right? It's like, you just want to be happy doing the things that you love. And, the filmmaking part is a piece of that equation.
Well, I mean, whenever your audience gets a chance to see Chasing Amy, and whenever the two of you get an opportunity to see it, that's the end of the movie, ostensibly, is me coming to that realization. And what actually matters. I'll summarize my little end monologue here. You'll have to put a spoiler alert up top or something for spoilers for Chasing Amy. But
let's go.
It's, a boy from Kansas with very few connections gets to, move to New York, give a TED Talk, has all of his dreams come true. And then the thing that he thought he wanted actually isn't the thing that he needed. The thing that he needed, he had the entire time, whether it's, in here, or the person who is sitting in the room waiting for me to be done with this podcast.
That's right.
and it is the light of my life. Like, the only thing that fucking matters is who we are to each other.
Yep.
How we treat each other. You said this earlier, Chris, that, when you die, you become fictitious, but how people talk about you is reflective of how you treated them in life, how you made them feel anytime you walked in a room. I don't know if you guys play like RPGs or anything like that, but like, I'm a diehard like Mass Effect fan, right?
Oh, nice.
And every time you talk to somebody in Mass Effect, right, your score goes up or down. Your score goes up or down, right?
Yeah.
And every opportunity you have to talk to someone is an opportunity for that score to go up.
Yep.
Or to max out, so to speak.
Nice.
None of this shit fucking matters other than how we make each other feel. If Chasing Amy was a great movie and everybody had a miserable time on it, then it would not be worthy of a second of conversation. That is the real tea.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you this, for everybody here and everybody who's listening, I invite you not only to see Chasing Amy, of course, but you have to listen, okay, to Nat King Cole, Nature Boy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's
all time.
Everybody on here, as soon as you get off, listen to that song. And that song will put all of what we've talked about into the most simple perspective. It will wrap up everything we've said in very few lyrics, but just so you know, it is literally my favorite song of all time. So
there you go. A little truth bomb there from Nick and Alex, Sav. This has been absolutely everything I thought it would be and more. I couldn't just thank you guys more for joining. Why don't you, if it's on the festival like sort of agenda and it's on the plan, please do submit Chasing Amy to the Nashville Film Festival. I can do what I can to help there. I can't manipulate anything. Obviously, I wouldn't want to do that because I wouldn't be, you wouldn't want that. But please submit it as an Oscar qualifying film festival. But outside of that, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media, on the internet, maybe see it at a festival, plans, any of that stuff?
ChasingAmy.com. We post all of our festivals there. Social media at ChasingAmyDoc. And those are the two places to get the most info. And then if you follow this guy, he posts a lot. I'm not really on social media anymore, so
there you go.
It's all good.
Yeah, a lot. I post every Friday that it's the weekend, and I found that to be popular. People love to hear good news. I like to bring it to them. No, I mean, if you want to follow me, mostly on Instagram now at Sav Rodgers Film. And then you can also support the Transgender Film Center at Trans Film Center. Donate to us, help us make trans filmmakers' dreams come true. In the idea of helping build your own table, so to speak. And then go look at our fellows and all the people who we try to support and hire them and fund them and support their work. That's it.
I absolutely love it. You heard it here first. Go support the film. Go support these incredible filmmakers at chasingamy.com. You can follow Sav at Sav Rodgers Film on Instagram, and you can contribute to everything we've talked about today at Trans Film Center, also on Instagram. If you want to know more about the Make It podcast, that could not be easier. Well, heck, you're already here on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube watching us, right? Or listening to us. But if you want more, you can go to themakeitpodcast.com. You can find us there and watch all of our back episodes, maybe listen to my original interview, long form interview with Alex there. You can find us individually. First and foremost, probably, I guess, Nick, you want me to share your email, so I'll do that. You can reach out to Nick at bonsai.film, and you can talk about his hat, and you can talk about Nat King Cole. You can talk about his culture check. Send him some comments. We answer 100% of those. You can also find him on Instagram. New page, if I'm not mistaken. It's called They Call Me Mr. Bugs.
That's right. They call me Mr. Bugs. Now, if you don't know, that's a play on They Call Me Mr. Tibbs, Sidney Poitier. So they call me Mr. Bugs.
Beautifully done. Nice play there. New page, lots of activity. Go follow him at They Call Me Mr. Bugs. And you can follow us on social anywhere. But I don't think we're quite on Pinterest yet.
We're everywhere,
but we will be. But just about
like
everywhere you want to go. So like Instagram, X, TikTok. I think you can find us there at _Make It Podcast on all three. So that's X, Instagram, and TikTok. We share videos, posts, all kinds of stuff there. And you can reach out to me directly on X at Flame in Your Heart. Your is spelled UR. But I think you can also just search Chris Barkley and I'll come right up as well. So you can find me on X. And again, comments there, I will respond to 100% of them. Last, but certainly not least, we have a newsletter and we have a store. You can find that at bonsai.film. That's BONSAI.FILM. You go there and use a / whatever I just said before, ignore that.
I don't know what
/ subscribe. You can find the newsletter. Yep. It's free. It comes out every 2 weeks. It's an incredible newsletter. And we pull things from all over the world of film, from corner to corner, not just a reposting of articles like some film newsletters are. And then if you go / store, you can find all of our incredible gear. We are really trying to start a movement here with sort of the Make It theme. You see that on me and Nick's shirts. If you're watching on YouTube, it's not just a t-shirt. It's not just apparel. It's a calling cry to everything you're all about. And we have additional cities coming. I think 5 new cities coming. And we have an incredible partnership with Cotton Bureau. Buttery soft t-shirts there. Hats, tanks, hoodies, you name it. Cotton Bureau rejects 90% of all designs. So we're super proud that we got a partnership with them. We're part of that 10% that made it. So go to Cotton Bureau and then search for the Make It Podcast. You will find our store. Please do support, pick up a t-shirt and wear it on set. Take a picture of yourself on Instagram and tag us on it at _ Make It Podcast. We would love that. So with that enormous diatribe out of the way, Nick, can you please leave us with the credo?
I feel like I got to take a deep breath, bro. Jeez, you know, I'm like, whew, I'm having palpitations or something over here. Anyway, yeah, I just got to, of course, just say thank you, you know, to Sav and Alex for doing this and just being so gracious with their time and participating with us. And of course, the real thing, again, I'm a little bit of an empath. I just appreciate when we can have people with whom we have kindred spirit.
Yep.
That's the most important thing. This is all about the love that we share on this podcast with one another as creatives, but also as humans, because filmmakers are people too.
Yep.
So with that, I will say to our friends, our fans, our followers, our family out there, be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Nick, Alex, Sav, talk to you all soon.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Be good, guys.
All right,
Thanks
folks.
for having us.
Our pleasure. Take it easy.